This is a station for reparation. This is a station for reparation. This is a station for reparation. This is a station for reparation.
So this is episode 6, the last one of the season. So I'm just going to spend this episode recapping and then sort of boiling down everything that came through these episodes and through the people that I talked with, like boiling it down to these, what I feel like are like core, what I felt were core things to remember. Yeah, for this next cycle. So I guess we can think of this episode as a sort of like prayer. It's a prayer going into this next phase that we've all been calling in. And I want to make it really clear that this episode, this series, this season, this anything that anything that I'm doing right now is specifically for the people who feel deeply, the people who feel really, really, really deep. It's for my feelers. Like these are tools for us because we're on next. We've been on, but we are so on right now. Like our skills, our tools are literally what is collectively lacking. So we gotta stand up is what we got. We gotta stand up. So rise. That didn't work. It worked before when I was practicing, but I'm in a space where I kind of gotta be quiet. I gotta yell that. I gotta yell it. So imagine me saying rise. Imagine me screaming that at the top of my lungs right now. That's what I want my feelers to feel. Yeah. Like rise, rise. Like let's go. You know what I mean? Like it's like let's go. It's it's time. The time is now. Temperature check. So where we are in Philly Cam. I'm very happy that this is where I'm recording the last episode, even though so I've already moved to New York with me and my partner. Or I've already moved to New York with my partner. And so coming back intentionally to Philly Cam to wrap this up. Um temperature check. So yeah, we're July. My birthday just passed a week ago. So what are we? July fucking what the fuck? July 17th. Temperature's hot. It's been hot. It's been hot. And I feel like I don't know if we're like talking about it enough. Like how hot it is. There's a lot there. There's a lot there with this temperature check because it's like the fact that it's hot just brings up really where we're at right now. Just a quick little story about moving day. So the day that me and my partner did our official like big move, get the U-Haul truck, like get the cats, like big move up to the apartment in New York. It was on the first day of a big ass heat wave. It was June 23rd, 2 days before my partner's birthday. So we moved in a heat wave. We moved in the heat. We moved in the heat wave. And it was one of the worst days of our lives. Like it was like really bad because the ripple effect, you know? Like it's a heat wave. It's really hot. The earth is hot. Bruh. Like I don't think we can. Oh, it's scary, yo. Like I don't. So the ripple effect on that day, on a day where it's like we need to exert energy, we're moving, right? Like we're like on a day where the earth is so hot, it's like, of course, plans changed where there were movers that canceled. And so now we gotta OD, like we gotta like push. We gotta push. And we have to do sort of the heavy lifting, especially a lot of it was on him. And then I drove up with the cats. So the car I have doesn't have strong AC. So the weather, it was like 99 degrees. So in the car, it was given 99 degrees. And I tried everything to keep it not deadly for the cats, like installing a fan in the back seat, like having, because the sun, of course, was shining bright as fuck. And so had these window covers that dimmed the light coming in so that there's at least like not the beating down sun coming in. So try my hardest, but even through that, we're like 20 minutes, we're like maybe like 30 minutes into New York. And by the way, we drugged them. We drugged them, but it didn't work. It didn't work. It worked a little bit on our more anxious cat, which was good. But on our least anxious cat, which usually is like in the car, he doesn't make any sounds. Like he was crying, y'all. And I was terrified. Like, anyway, so I'm with the cats and we crossed the bridge and we're like maybe about like 20, 30 minutes from the apartment. And this is when both cats now are just like going off. And I'm at my hottest, right? Because in the city, in New York City now, everything just feels like compressed because I'm coming from the highway. So at least like air is flowing. But now, like traffic's moving slower. And I have a moment where I just completely break down. Like I'm just bawling my eyes out because I'm looking around. I'm hearing the cats crying. And it's like people are just going. Like people are just moving. I'm just moving. Literally, I'm moving. And I look around and people are like moving. Like nothing, like it's not hot. And I just couldn't understand. Like I'm like, what? Like in my head, what kept coming was like, what will it take for us to stop? You know? What will it take for us to stop? We don't feel the heat. And so that is the feeling I'm sort of still inside of right now because the heat is summer and it's, of course, this record hottest summer. It's going to keep being the record hottest summer until I guess we stop. Shit. So on this tip, last week I went to School of Temporary Liveness. Shout out to Niall and Lauren, Niall Jones and Lauren Baxt for curating this incredible weekend. Good job. Good job. Good job. One of the nights, or one of the days, Denise Ferreira da Silva came in for a lecture. And something that I'm going to connect these dots really quickly. So the lecture was about her divination practice that she's inside of. And she's been inside of for a while, but like there's an intentional sort of ritual practice she's been up to since the beginning of this year, January. And it's been to do a tarot pull on the new moon of every month. And she started in January, where the new moon was in Aquarius, and it was right around the inauguration too. So she shared what that reading was, and what made everything make sense was when she shared that Aquarius at least at that time, like she took a snapshot of like where the planets were at that time on that day for the new moon, and Aquarius was in the 12th house. And what she drew from that was, you know, Aquarius is the sign of the collective, of the people. And it's also an air sign. So it's detached from it's detached from emotion. And she was then talking about the Aquarius being in the 12th house, and the 12th house being a place that is deep, deep emotion, deep feeling, deep, deep, deep feeling. And so, with Aquarius being in the 12th house, what she drew from that was the collective doesn't have the tools to deeply feel. Like, the collective is in a space where we don't have the tools to do what's being called of us, which is to deeply feel. And this whole episode, I'm gonna be crying in honor of this call to action, because that's our work. That's our work. Is to feel, right? Is to feel. And for my feelers, like all my feelers, right? Through hell or high water, we gotta share our tools of how it is that we feel, right? Because, you know, both me and my partner are feelers. And we suppressed our feelings that moving day. I know I did. I'll speak for myself. I completely suppressed my intuition, being like, we shouldn't move in the heat wave. Cats. And we had agency, we had choice. Like, we had a wiggle room. So when I think to like what was stopping us from like moving with how we felt, and it's a lack of trust in our feelings, in like when we're facing the norm, facing the what's logic, right? So we had already come up with a plan, right? Based on logic, and logic which is just fucking made up. And I'm speaking to like sort of the Aquarius and the air signs right now, like the air energy. And it's no shade, but I'm just speaking to what we need right now, which is that deep feeling, that water. And the systems that we're operating in societally are dominated by this detachment to emotion, to feeling. So feelers bow down to that shit because it seems like it's just the way things are. It's like, I don't really have it's like, this is just the way I need to be moving to keep up with living. Like, this is just the way living is. And that's how I felt all my entire life, is like, I need to keep up with the way things are. Bitch, no more. Bitch, no more. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No. Because the system is literally just made up by people who just were talking. Like, they just said some shit. They just saying shit. And it becomes the rule, it becomes the plan, it becomes the system, it becomes the container that we're all just sort of being dominated by. And we all, what's inside of that we all is the body, the earth, the intuition. It's all being dominated by this detachment from feeling. So feelers, like it's time to assert how we feel, and not only assert how we feel, but to build systems that are based on that feeling. Create systems that emerge from and are in response to feeling. So, how do people feel in this space? You know what I mean? And that, just changes the whole pace of things. You know what I mean? Like, it changes a lot of shit. So, that's the temperature. All right? That's where I am. That's where I am. Yeah, I'm in it. I'm in the feeling of it all. And I invite, especially my feelers, to let that out. Let it out. And I also invite the feelers to gather with each other. Because that's the other thing is like the feelers, our tools can be like siphoned off only to in maybe like relationships or in like these sort of more singular interactions. And feelers need to be systems, like they need to build systems right now. Like we can't really get wrapped up in the one-on-one interactions, into like the holding space for people to emotionally process like one-on-one, like one-offs. It's really like we need all of our energy to really build these systems. And again, we're in a system that doesn't have the tools to respond to feeling. So it's like, it's going to be hard as fuck for feelers to build these fucking systems. Like, it's going to be fucking hard, like hard ass labor. But guess what? That labor is going to be ours. And we're going to feel it immediately. The reverberations are going to be felt for an indefinable amount of time.
This is a station for reparation. This is a station for reparation. This is a station.
Now I'm going to get into a recap of the episodes and then sharing what sort of boiled down gem we can take with us into this next cycle, or I can take with me inside this next cycle, but I'm sharing. Let's start with episode 1, letting go of shame. It was where I talked about, oops. Oh my goodness. Child, I'm trying to be cute and are you going to stay on this? Yeah, it's the one where I'm talking about letting go of shame. And it's explaining the premise of the show. And the main gem coming out of that is courage. Taking courage with us into this next phase. Courage. Courage, which is the antidote of shame and fear. Yeah. And I think that's another thing for my deep feelers is we really feel that shame and fear, bruh. Like the people who can detach from emotion, like they can still like operate under the shame and fear and like operate. I can't. Like the shame and fear are genuinely debilitating. So what does courage look like in the face of, or what does courage look like when you feel so small? When you feel so small and so afraid? And for me, in the episode, I was talking about like The courage just looks like practice. That's it. It just looks like coming back again and again in small ways. Ritual. Yeah, courage looks like ritual. And you know, there I don't want to get into the other. Let me just keep it there. But yes, courage. And then episode 2 was my conversation with Rayla White Spraggins. I guess you can kind of see more of her face there. Child, this is just not a good method. I'm just. And this conversation, Rayla talked a lot about divine timing. So the gem that I'm pulling from this conversation is time. Time. So what I feel like I've been learning and seeing within my last 9 years, and then most of those years having been in Philly, is another relationship to time. Yeah. Another relationship to time, which I am so thankful that I've been able to experience this before going back into New York. Like I have this with me now, like another sense of time. Yeah, shout out to Black Quantum Futurism, a collective that's based in Philly, or that a lot of that basically emerged in Philly. And they have workshops, they have a book that I highly recommend. And they talk a lot about this other sense of time that we need to practice occupying in resistance to the dominant oppressive colonial versions of time that we're all like subject to. Time. And then this next one kind of comes from the same episode with Rayla. And then also it kind of goes into the third and fourth episodes too. Third episode was that's when I was talking about creative labor and a specific project that I did, and just sort of talking about how to use my creative labor in ways that actually align with my values, what I value. The fourth episode was with Taja Ibram, and she shared how she got into her herbal medicine practice. And so one lesson, I guess we can call it, coming from those episodes is organization, 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 and bodies. Attention to organization and bodies. So with Rayla, both Rayla and Taja talked so much about like their pivot from academia, their pivot from the nonprofit. Well, Rayla, and in a later episode with Rashid, they talked about the pivot from nonprofit world. And then Taja and Rayla talked about a pivot from academia, where it's like that container around like how research is done, how scholarship is seen, how study is enacted, that just though wasn't working for their values, for how they wanted to move in relation to others. And it's strange because these organizations, they attract people with the values of deeply feeling, with the values of response. And there's a talk with Fred Moten where he says it's because these organizations hunt and I'm gonna call it, it's like feelers, but it's also, I don't want to give away my next one, but it's people who are like radical. It's like, yes, these organizations, they hunt the feelers, they hunt the radical, they hunt the artists, they hunt the people that think outside the box. And then they collect them in this space that is not designed for that. So a lot of the lessons coming from these interviews was about peeping that, peeping it, peeping it. And, you know, everyone I talked to, they made a big pivot because once they peeped that the container was not, once they peeped that, then it was like, all right. And in different ways, it's like, you know, they just left the container, or they started their own container, or they just like, just let themselves not have a container for a while. You know, but in different ways. And then, you know, some people stay inside the container, which is a different thing. You know, you stay inside the container. And I think Fred Moten talked about this too in the talk I'm referencing, where you stay in the container and it's a way of sort of kind of in a Harriet Tubman sense, you go and get the people off the plantation basically, and you bring them out. It's sort of like a rescue mission, which I fucked with that too. I fucked with that. It's just like, you got to be Jedi level for that. For me, I'm not ready for that yet. Like I'm too porous. I got to work. I'm still working on like how to, you know, close my vessel off to just the influence of a dominant narrative or a dominant structure. Like, I'm really porous to my environment, and I'm learning how to turn it off and be able to maintain the integrity of my vessel in these spaces so that I can, like, you know, grab and go. I've been able to do it for a little bit, but then I get totally compromised. So yeah, different strategies around this, but an attention to organization or how something is organizing. And yes, to my feelers, my call to y'all, to us, is to make these containers. Make these containers for fellow feelers. Make these containers for yourself. Make these containers for the people, for everybody, where you can put your intention and attention on, like, how does this thing really feel? How does it work when we're inside of it? What is it? How is it working? And then the bodies, right? How is this container making bodies? How is it impacting how a body feels? And that goes into sort of even looking at an organization as a body. So simply, like, how is my body being affected right now? And that came up within Rayla's conversation, where she was talking about her burlesque practice and how so much of that was done in a community of survivors getting back into their bodies, and sort of like rewiring their relationship to their bodies. And with Taja, so much of her even getting into herbal medicine was after seeing that, like, oh, wow, these herbs that are right around me affect my actual body. She responded to a call that her body was making. Her body was sick. And she was like, all right, in me responding to this and to my body, how does this influence the ways that I move? You know what I mean? When I really, really respond, how does this influence? And that is what got her into herbal medicine. You know what I mean? It's this response to the actual body you're in. It sounds so like simple. It's because it is.
This is a station for reparation. This is a station for reparation. This is a station for reparation.
And then the next lesson is coming from episode 3 mainly. Yeah, that's the one where I make a call to boycott and to practice the art of boycotting and holding on to our creative juices underground with each other a little longer. And so the lesson from this episode was, oh, maybe even though that method is not fucking working, bro. Here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying not to have to edit this shit. I'm trying not to have to edit this episode. So I'm not trying to like, all right, now let me input a clip from this one. So I'm sorry if this is like annoying, but just to recall your memory, yeah, this episode where I'm talking and trying to like just make a call for anybody who wants to collect offline and boycott. And so lesson that I want to bring into this next phase is an attention to creative labor and stopping. Okay. I'll add stop. So to stopping. So there's stopping and there's also redirecting. Yeah. Stopping and redirecting. So attention to creative labor, and then the act of stopping and or redirecting. That's a big one from that episode. And then from also just from a lot of the examples of organization building that I was able to witness here in Philly. So in terms of creative labor, we all know right now artists are blatantly being undervalued right now. It's like we've always been undervalued, but right now the mask is completely off, right? So a big question is coming up about like where should we direct our creative labor? Big question coming up about like who is benefiting from our creative labor. Right. And so the call within that episode was like for us to stop laboring for systems and organizations that exploit, that extract, that undervalue, that depend on us, but give us the smallest share of the profit, the resources, and so stopping that, right? And then redirecting all of that energy and labor to circulate with each other. Collective economics. Yeah, we got it. We get it. I just want to share something that I'm realizing in my journey right now of responding to my fibroids. Yeah, there's a lot coming up around creative labor and what happens when we stop. So walk with me, talk with me. I'm gonna make this connection. All right. So the fibroids mostly affect Black women, mostly affect Black people with wombs. Okay, got it. Why? You look that up, no one has a reason why. The only sort of general reason that people give is like, the effects of course, the stressors of racism and specifically racial capitalism and what that does to the body and your ability to have a balanced ecosystem, balanced hormones. And so, thinking about that, but then also thinking about that space, right? Where the fibroids grow and why they grow. They grow because you're not using that space for a very particular kind of production, very particular kind of labor. And the fact that that affects Black people with wombs the most, I can't help but think about chattel slavery. I can't help but think about the forcing of Black people with wombs to occupy that space at all times. At all times, no breaks, no stops, like constantly producing, laboring, a definite form of creative labor, creating profit, right? For a system, for an organization, for an overarching body that is also harming us or like incarcerating us in this position of constantly laboring. Okay. So I've just been thinking about like, okay, so are we being low key punished for not having as many babies by being the number one, being the number one demographic to have fibroids? Like, are fibroids the consequence of stopping? And it's just really interesting to me, that question, because it makes me think about the consequence of stopping anything. Like if the call is to boycott, if the call is to strike, like are we ready for the consequences of that? You know what I'm saying? Are we ready for that labor? So if we're stopping our labor from, with me in particular, I'm almost 40. I'll be 40 next year. And I haven't had a baby yet. And so the gynecologist told me, they were like, all right, so with the fibroids and with your thicker endometrial lining, you're more susceptible to cancer and like to other complications if you do decide to have a baby. And like, you know, and also it's just also a sign that your hormones are like super out of whack. So with those sort of like consequences, I have to, so in the face of that consequence, to me not having a baby, to me stopping that practice of just producing, I have to change my whole lifestyle. I have to then do a different kind of labor that is also very, very, very hard. And a question that comes up for me with this, I think what I want to take with me into this next phase, where I'm like, more and more of us are going to be stopping culturally producing, creatively producing things for organizations and systems that devalue us. Yes. Are we ready for the consequences? Are we ready for that labor? Because stopping isn't resting, is what I've learned. Stopping isn't resting. Stopping isn't like, all right. Stopping is, okay, so now there's another kind of labor that needs to happen. There's another kind of labor. Like, I have to source my food in a completely different way now. In a system where it's like already hard to get food that hasn't been produced under traumatizing conditions, like you gotta search for that. Like that's labor. There's so much just in this past week of me trying to like more holistically respond to my fibroids. I'm seeing it's a lifestyle change. It is a paradigm change. It is, and to uphold that change, it takes an incredible amount of labor. Incredible. And so the attention I want to bring to this one, where it was like, all right, so we're thinking about a creative labor, and we're stopping giving it to the fuck boys. We're done with that. But the consequence of then of retracting that labor, there's a vacuum, and then there's a consequence to that. There's a backlash to that. And I want us to get ready for that, even just by knowing that we're going to need to go to work still. Like, who are you going to, right, for this lifestyle change when you stop fill in the blank? It's going to be hard. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be labor, bro. So, in this lesson, I had to pause because I'm like, the creative labor and the stopping means that this next phase is going to be even harder work. Yeah. In this lesson, in this specific one, I'm like, yeah, I need to give a little warning with it. This one's going to come with even harder work. So cool. Great. So then the next lesson came from episode with Taja Ibram. And there was one moment that I pulled out that really just is staying with me that I want to bring into this next cycle. It was her very descriptive sort of like retelling of what happened when she realized that the herbs that grow right over there can help heal her deep sickness. And she said it was like, imagine your skull is cracking open and there's just this lightning that's coming into your brain. Like, it's like the absolute most mind-blowing experience. And that image that she created was just so, first of all, very funny, but then it's like radical, mind-blowing, body shifting. Like, it's just radical change. Radical change. And that came from a realization of something that is so fucking mundane and regular. Like, it's the literal herb that grows over there. And learning that you can make a tea with that, drink it daily, and feel better for free. Like, so for me, it's giving the radical is regular. The radical is the regular. Move into this next phase, the radical got to be regular. Okay? Because the regular is radical. Like, it's just, and also the radical regulates. The radical regulates the system. You know what I mean? I think as somebody who has been called a radical in a negative sense, like, just, from older generations looking at me like being like, oh, you're too radical. There's, um, there's a pejorative way of seeing that practice of throwing a system off, of throwing a system off. But that's a very regulatory practice in the body, a very regulatory practice in physics. Like something radical is meant to throw something off to put it back into balance. So yeah, be radical. Yeah, this next phase is like to be radical, very without the pejorative, or without the, like, I'm doing something so big. It's like, no, you're doing something really regular by being radical. You're doing something, you're just drinking the tea. Like, but letting that be completely mind-blowing. Letting that be just, what? Yeah, so there's something with the I mean, some people may see it as like returning to the old ways. Not necessarily that. It's seeing that we have what we need. We really do. We have what we need around us. And when we live in a practice of doing that, it is radical. It is radically going to shift this whole paradigm we find ourselves in. Also, the Taja episode, if you rewatch that, it's a call to be radical in general, because reentry community farm is another really radical practice. Like, just seeing a space that wasn't being used, especially by developers, and using that space to be a farm that gives free food and free resources and like learning and study to is radical. But it's also just growing food from the ground that's right there. You know what I mean? All right. So the next one is from episode 5 with Rashid Ajamu. And this one is memory. Memory. All right, memory. Memory. So with Rashid, what's standing out from that episode is when I asked them, what advice do you have? If you could be yourself 9 years down the road and you're looking back, what advice do you have for us? And their response was, get your memory up, get your archiving up, get your archiving practices up. And they weren't talking about the earth warming practices of like using more and more and more fucking like storage space, using or cloud space, or using more and more technology as the ways that, you know, we see it now, like to capture and to store and to hoard. No, he's talking about the memory. He's talking about the memory, right? The memory that you have when you are fully present in an experience, fully present in place, in the place you're in, and you're able to remember that. Remember them, remember the people, remember. So this idea of memory as being something that we need to stretch our capacity for in this next phase, because it's been like taka, whoa. Thinking about my friend Kirion and how they were saying on TikTok, they made a post about how they're noticing that their attention span is just like getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, shorter, shorter. Like they can't watch a video without doing two times speed. And so they're actively practicing like, all right, I gotta read, or I gotta like, in that moment where I go to hit 2 times, like I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna try to watch this whole video without changing it. It's slowly but surely trying to stretch that capacity again to remember, to remember, and to have it stretch also our capacity to be able to sit with something, to give something our full attention, right? And going back to the lesson on creative labor and stopping, you know, so many of these systems are feeding off of our attention. And yeah, our attention is very, 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 it's very thick. Like it's not something that can be continuously. I think that's a part of the trick. The trick is that, you know, especially now with all of these ways that our attention is grabbed at every millisecond, it feels like our attention is like nothing. Like it's just air. Like it's not matter. But our attention is very, very, very thick. Can you remember a time when somebody sat with you and gave you their full attention? Sat with you and gave you their full presence. It's thick. It's thick. You know, it's thick. And so it's matter. And so yeah, calling into this next phase where it's like we hold our attention. We hold it a bit more, you know, and expand our capacity to remember. Expand our capacity to remember in our memory.
This is a station for reparation. This is a station for reparation. This is a station for reparation.
And then lesson number 7 is our capacity to be loved. This came from the same episode with Rashid. And at the end of it all, this was another response that they had to the question of like, if you're in the future and you're looking back, what would you tell us? And it's open up your capacity to feel love, to be loved, to recognize that you're loved, to feel the love that's around you, to feel the love. Open up your capacity to be loved. Yes. The trauma of being in spaces and places where just love isn't the practice of the container. That wasn't the function of the container. That wasn't in the intentions at all. To be in spaces like that, it's, it deadens your receptors. It deadens you. It deadens it where you can't feel, you turn off the capacity to feel it. Feel the love that you need and want to feel. You turn it off. And so Rashid is calling us to expand that capacity to be loved again. And that is so deep, especially for our feelers, who need to be creating these systems right now. Like, especially y'all. Yeah. You got to feel love again. Got to feel love and your capacity to love, to be loved. Got to feel that as we build these systems. Got to build that as we got to feel that as we build these systems. Our capacity to be loved. Our ability to feel love. Very important as we build these systems. And then lesson number 8 is coming from that same episode with Rashid. And this was from one of the interludes where I put in some footage from a DJ Delish party. So this lesson number 8 is revival. Yeah. 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 Revival in its next cycle. Revival. Let's go. Revival. Spaces to release, spaces to be witnessed in the release, spaces to turn this on. You know what I mean? Turn this on. Spaces to wake up. Spaces to wake up. Yeah. Yeah. And then last but not least, lesson number 9. I'm leaving this one in honor of the 9 cycle and endings. I'm leaving this one to the unknown. Not gonna name this one. Yeah, lesson number 9 is unknown. It's unknown. Yeah. Yeah.
This is a station for reparation. This is a station for reparation. This is a station for reparation.
Okay. So recapping the lessons from this first season of Reparation Station. 9 lessons in honor of the 9-year cycle that we have complete. We are about to complete 2025. Lesson number 1, courage. May we take courage into this next cycle with us. Lesson number 2, time. May we walk into this next cycle with an expanded and unlimited and anchored sense of time, our time. Lesson number 3, organization and bodies, attention to it. Attention to organization and bodies. Attention to organizations and bodies. And bodies. Lesson number 4, creative labor and the right to stop. Stop. The right to stop. Creative labor and stopping giving it up. Stopping giving it. Lesson number 5, radical is the regular. Lesson number 6, memory. Remember. Lesson number 7, opening up our capacity to be loved. Yes, to be loved. Feeling love by the people around us. Yeah, by the environment around us. Be loved, to let in love. To let in love again. To my feelers, this is for y'all. We got to let in love again. And then lesson number 8 is revival. I love this one. I feel like if there's a season 2, it's going to be on this one. It's going to be all revival spaces, bro. Reviving our senses, bro. Shout out to Denise Ferreira da Silva with that reading that she shared about the tools. The tools we need right now is to deepen our capacity to feel. And then lesson number 9, unknown. All right, unknown, we don't know. We're leaving that up. We're leaving that. Yeah. All right. The season it's been fun. I say that with like a question mark because like fun, yeah, it's not just fun. Yeah, it's been a lot of like learning. But at the core of it, it's been fun. This has been a passion project, honey. Like, there's nobody that made me do this. Like, this is officially a passion. This is officially a passion project. Like, and I'm like, I did it. Oh my God. I made it to the first episode on something that I just wanted to do. I just wanted to hear from my people and share it with other people. Yay. And go into this next season, memory up. We're not forgetting. No, we're not forgetting the tools we have. So much love. And see you offline. And then maybe season 2 might share stuff either about like the revivals, maybe either or both, maybe both revivals. But then also maybe deeper into this boycott, stop and shit, like how we're building economies with each other that respond to the response that's going to happen when we boycott, bitch. Like, because the backlash is going to be there. Okay? When we take back our labor, child, ooh, honey child, we got to get ready for the repression, for the clapback. So I think maybe that's the next season too. We'll see. Or maybe it's nothing. A ver. But
this is a station for reparation. This is a station for reparation. This is a station for reparation.